Hello everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diarist podcast, showing the human stories behind indie game development. This is your loyal Indie Diarist and host, Anthony L. Wolf, writer, game designer, and senior content manager in social media. As you guys already know by now, this is going to be the next to last Indie Diary of the year, but not the next to last episode of the year. I'm going to have a special footnote episode coming up right after this one with Pirate PR, so please keep an eye on the feed because that's going to be a really good one. Now, as is the nature of the show, my guests have varying types of equipment, so unfortunately VCD had some white noise and then some background noise, which I wasn't able to cancel when he speaks. So unfortunately, whenever he speaks, you're going to hear that in the background. But other than that, this episode is incredible, and I do recommend that you listen to it until the end. Now, I want to shout out to my amazing patrons before we start, who are Zagini, Fishbone Dev, and Peleg. You guys are incredible, and I wouldn't have been able to reach 60 Indie Diaries in just 2 years without your continued support. Thank you so much. Listeners, if you want to support the show too, just go to patreon.com/theindiediarist and check out my amazing tiers. We start from as little as £1.25 and offer things such as access to episodes in advance and a lot more. But let's get into the episode now. Hello everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diarist podcast, showing the human stories behind indie game development. As you've heard from the intro, I'm Anthony L. Wolf, and with me today is a guest that I believe has been waiting to come onto the show for a long time. Someone who's been following me pretty much since the beginning, I believe, or anyway, since the very early days of the show. Well, I'll let him introduce himself, but he is known online as VCD and is working on a little metroidvania called the In Between. So please, VCD, and if you feel free to say your real name if you want, but tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you're based, and what you're working on right now exactly.
Yeah, so once again, hello everybody. My name is Victory, but you can just as well just call me VCD. It's easier to remember. I'm an indie developer from Nigeria, and I'm the lead developer behind the In Between, a metroidvania about choices.
Perfect. And yeah, it is very much about choices, because there are at least 3 instances of a big pointy hand saying choice in your trailer. I think it was the Halloween trailer. I watched it earlier. But yeah, okay. So I always like to open these episodes with a little icebreaker, and I think if you've been listening to other episodes, you'll know what this one will be. But if you could be any game's character for a day, who would you be and why?
Samus.
Right, yeah. Well, you're working on a Metroidvania. I should have expected that answer, I suppose. So yeah. Right, great. Well then, as you know the show. So the Indie Diarist is about the people behind the indie games that we all love from the sector and from the community. So I always like to start from the beginning to learn a little bit more about my guest's story before we dive into your current game. And what you're working on. So what's your earliest or fondest memory that has to do with video games, you would say, when you think about the very early days of your life?
Yeah, that would actually be from my early days, and that's from my childhood when I was like 5, 6 to 8 years old. Yeah, in the neighborhood, in the barracks, the army barracks, me and my friends usually gather at the house with a PC, because we already know that once you have a PC, then you are kind of like one of the people in the big leagues with lots of games to play. So my fondest days of playing video games were the likes of Jazz Jackrabbit 2 or Mario Forever. I'm sure you have heard of that on Mario.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, Nintendo and our country aren't really so close, so our first introduction to Mario was actually a fan game over the actual console. So yeah, most times we'll just meet up, play those type of games, try and see who would actually get to defeat Bowser in World 8. Then Jack Rabbit 2, me and my best friend Chiedu, we actually used to play games like that. Mostly the multiplayer. I'll be Spaz, he'll be Jazz. I like the speed. Yeah.
Okay,
so
well then,
that we also end up playing a lot of Mortal Kombat. Really good time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, really, really good game. But I see a pattern, like there's a lot of platforms in there. So maybe would you say that those early games influence the kind of projects that you're working on right now, like the in between? Would you say that they were a big influence on it? Okay, yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, definitely. Because there are three major games I played in the past that heavily influenced what I'm working on now. So the first one being Jazz Jackrabbits for the speed and
Mm-hmm.
platforming, and then the next was actually the likes of Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. I remember playing that game when I was like 9 years. It
Uh
was kind of scary and hard to play, but I liked it for the aesthetic and the story. Then when I was like 13, I finally managed to beat it by myself. One of the
huh.
biggest achievements out there.
Yeah,
Then
well, of
when
course.
I graduated from high school, that's when I now got my hands on Metroid Fusion. That's the first Metroidvania experience I ever got. Metroid Fusion, followed by Castlevania, Area of Sorrow on the GBA. I
Uh
played a lot of those games. So yeah, those three heavily influenced what I ended up making.
And I like what you said about feeling like it feeling a big achievement when you actually beat the game. I remember when I stopped when I started transitioning from just playing games to actually beating them, and that was the first games that I beat were always a very big achievement, or they felt like a very big achievement. I think the first one that I really felt was Kingdom Hearts because I loved Kingdom Hearts when I was a kid. Still one of my favorite games, like the first few, the first two. Then the series became what it became, but we'll not go there. So yeah, I remember I struggled a lot with the first Kingdom Hearts, especially the latest bosses towards the end of the game. And then when I actually finished it, I was like, oh my god, this is a great feeling. But yeah, no, great stuff, great stuff. And well, for me, I brought this up because for me it was a moment when I stopped playing games, just playing games, and then actually finishing them. But there's another kind of watershed moment in the life of any game developer out there, and that is when you actually realize that you would like to make the things that you love playing. So when was that for you? Like, was there a specific aha moment, a light bulb moment where you said, "I want to make a game"?
Yeah, that was when I was 5. Yeah, definitely when I was 5/6 years
Ah,
old.
right.
Yeah,
Really?
that
When you
was
were
yeah,
5?
yeah. Pretty
Oh,
much the
wow,
moment I
that's
got my
early.
hands on very early. The moment I got my hands on the family desktop, ended up playing around the Microsoft Office, that Windows XP experience. Then
Uh-huh.
also the other games. I believe Jazz Jocker 2 had a level editor at the time, so
Oh,
due to that, I was
could
kind
be.
of playing around with it. Then I also got my hand on another Mario fan game, that's Super Mario Bros. X. So that fan game ended up having a lot of level editor tools in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like years before Mario Maker 1 even got released. So I actually got my hands on it. I was just building a lot of stuff. Since then, I kind of just knew that, yeah, all these days I must make games. And here
Right,
we are.
yeah, that's great. Not a lot of people can say that. A lot of people just, at some point I've had lots of guests who say, "Oh yeah, one day I realized someone must be making all these visual effects and someone must be making all of these things that make a game, and I want to be that person." But for you, like it was very early on. Um, I like that you brought up a level editor because I think I felt the same way when I played Little Big Planet. That was a lovely series, and it had level editors and such, which had even very advanced logic and switches and whatnot. So it felt like actually programming a game to an extent with sensors and like colliders and areas and such. So that was pretty cool. But at the time, I didn't know that I was basically playing with a mini engine. And I didn't know that, making games would feel similar to that once you have, of course, the right foundations and such. So yeah, I do know exactly how you felt when it came to the level editors and such. That is a really really good point. Um, so how long have you been developing the in between for? Would you say?
I started 2022 back in
Uh
April.
huh.
Yeah, basically next April will make it the third year of development.
Right. And do you feel like you're close to the finish line?
Well, I'll say I'm a little past the half line.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then you've been developing this for about 2 years, and it's going to be 3 years soon. would you say there's a specific particular development challenge that left a mark on you? Something that you can share for other developers who may need something to learn from?
The development challenge was actually from two major things. The first being the animation involved, and the next
Yeah,
was
of course.
the engine that I was using to develop. It's well, not only is it barely known out there, but also the fact that a lot of the things that I've been doing in my game had never been done before. Like, let's assume I'm using Unity or Godot now, you want to maybe make a Metroidvania. Many have already been made in those engines, so it will be super easy to figure out how to do it. But in my case, I had to like think outside the box a lot. Even for certain other features like the Undertale inspired battle, Undertale wasn't made in 3D develop, so I had to figure out how he did it, then replicate it. Even the cutscenes that were kind of inspired by Legend of Zelda, yeah, the early 3D type of cutscenes, yeah. I basically had to animate those frames by hand over and over and structure them in a way that was actually looping. Like maybe the character is like speaking at some point. The video ends up looping over and over and over and over until you now end up hitting next. So that was a lot of technicalities that was done. It took frames, but yeah, overall, very good at the results.
Yeah, I suppose it's been a fulfilling process, albeit stressful and traumatic in some places. But yeah, no, I bet. Well, yeah, that's interesting. So, interesting challenge there for anyone who wants to approach things in a bit of a different way. Well, I guess we're getting closer to the present now. So I'm curious to know from you, actually, where did the idea for the in between come from? Like when did you realize, oh, this could be a very neat game? Because I see when you bring up choices as one of the biggest elements in the game, of course, I think about Undertale, and I wonder if that had something to do with it. But yeah.
Yeah, so let me kind of take it back to the very beginning. So I was kind of scrolling up on YouTube after a previous game jam where they were kind of they were kind of randomizing different game genres and ideas. So one of them ended up bringing up the concept of a turn-based Metroidvania. And it was one Ubisoft made before they became, Ubisoft of today. But yeah, that ended up clicking a bit like, what if I try to make a Metroidvania but with an entirely different gameplay mechanic on its head? Maybe it could work out. So I kind of discussed with one of my friends out there, Trevor, on Facebook, and he instantly recommended Undertale to me, which was surprising because, to be very honest, I'm not really a huge fan of many turn-based games. There are already a huge exceptions to that list, like Chrono Trigger,
Yeah.
Movie, and Undertale. Yeah, just very few exceptions, but most turn-based RPGs I really do not like playing. So yeah, I ended up reluctantly playing Undertale, and it was phenomenal. So that's how I knew that, okay, it would be really cool if we had more of that kind of turn-based gameplay in other video games. So let me just take the leap and try and make it, and that's what led us to today. It surprisingly worked well in a way that it's not really in your face, like you must be going through every turn-based battle while you're exploring the world over and over and over again. So there's enough breathing space for that to further the plots and the story and the endings. Depending on what you choose, then there's still enough action to go around. So that part about choices now came from a real life perspective. Like, have you ever been in that situation whereby there are like two parties that are kind of arguing and they're just kind of like stuck in the middle of it? Like oh, you got to pick this side or that side. But if you end up picking one side, you make an enemy of the other. If you pick the other and so on, then if you just stay in the middle, they could even end up turning on you. That's at the center of it.
Yeah, exactly. You could make two enemies instead.
I tried that alone as a story beat, whereby okay, you can actually try and pick a side here or there. You can choose to be good, you could choose to be bad, or you could just be just on your own, basically to forge your own path. And that also ended up getting solidified after I made a comic book of the game. Yeah, the entire game is actually built itself on it, so it's an adaptation at this point. So the comic has basically been a Bible, and it was centered on the theme of a journey that's you have to go from one place to another. So I had to combine that with the concept of choices, and next thing you know, the story of the in-between was born.
Right, yeah, no, that's well, that's an interesting way to approach a choice-based system. But yeah, I think you're right. It's interesting. Like when you stay neutral, you could have even more problems. Okay, that's a very interesting premise to to just the choice based system in there. Really, really interesting. And if you, well, of course, it's a metroidvania about choices. How would you describe what's unique about the in between in just one sentence or slightly more?
Well, there are a couple of buzzwords that have already been forming around the entire game. Well,
Okay.
the first one is basically Undertale Metroidvania. Like, it's practically it. It's Undertale meets Metroid. But not everybody surely knows Undertale, so it's basically a Metroidvania about your choices. So you are the one that basically gets to choose what you want to do. You can choose how you want to level up. You can choose where you want to go. You can choose how you want to fight. Because like unlike many games where you be like locked into combat, like you want to get past this enemy but you can't. You just have to fight them by fire by force. So in my game, I kind of approach sacrifice zone method of like in Kirby. In Kirby, you can easily just float away from all the enemies out there.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, same thing in my game. You can just dash through enemies for the most part, at least, until you end up getting locked by a boss gate. So if you want to stay and fight, it's on you. I mean, if you end up defeating them, there's no pickup or anything like that. How can you get health pickup from infection? So it doesn't make sense.
That's that was a question that was just popping up in my mind, because if you're giving players rewards for fighting enemies like experience and such, and you're giving them important rewards, then they will be incentivized to fight rather than choose not to. But if you just don't have any pickups, then, I mean, it's your choice what to do. It's interesting. Like, it could be a very liberating concept, just getting you free to play the game however you like and however you please. I'm curious to try it. And I know there's a demo on Steam, if I remember right. So for anybody who's intrigued by the concept of the in-between, please feel free to go to the Steam page. It will be linked in the description of the episode, but feel free to go to the Steam page and give it a try. So, well, I mean, you say that you're past the halfway point, and like how. What I'm curious about is how, if you could go back, like to 2 years ago, is there anything that you would change about how you approach the development of the game? Of course, ideally, you would know everything that you know now. But is there anything else that you think you've done massively wrong 2 years ago that you would like to fix now?
Yeah, first things first, like you mentioned, over the years, basically this whole game had more or less been like a trial and error effort, because I never really knew how to make Metroidvanias that much, and I didn't even know how to animate that much either. I was basically learning on the go, so when I first started, I was making the rookie mistake of like literally drawing every single frame over and over. I didn't learn how to recycle frames, stuff like that.
Okay.
If I definitely go back in time and I saw past me, I'll definitely blame him and tell him to not even try that again, because that shit so
right.
That.
Yeah, that would save you a lot of pain, I'm sure, and time. Yeah.
Then the other thing that I would end up warning myself not to do is, because the first year that I spent working on this game, I was kind of too focused on like trying to be too familiar to what already exists, like trying to lean too much into what already exists, like the combat. The first 4 months of development, I was trying to focus on a melee type of weapon, like you would use a sword with his hand, but I ended up just doing the easy route and going with a gun, because that was actually much more easier and convenient with dashing. So yeah,
scope creep is always a big beast.
Exactly. So I was kind of leaning too close to what's already existing. But now that this, especially in the past year, where I decided that, okay, this simple game that I want to do for just chapter 1 of the game, I know I want to make every moment count. So I shall just simply focus on that from the very beginning, rather than just try and make something simple, but just only throw in just a unique mechanic and call it a day. So yeah, I would have definitely tried to make every moment count then, as I'm doing now.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well then, well, I'm curious about another thing now. At this point, because I don't think you are. You are definitely the first game developer from Nigeria that comes to the show. And I know there are a lot of countries approach game development in a lot of different ways, with government subsidies and whatnot. For example, in the UK, there are a lot of funds. Well, not a lot, but there are some funds for indie developers and such that that want to make the dream game. How is it like to develop a game in your country, would you say?
Okay, so
Oh, no.
there's this funny joke among my peers in game development, and I think I mentioned it on Twitter one time. Making a game in Nigeria, not to mention your dream game, is kind of equal to playing something like Elden Ring blindfolded with no sound at all. Then your controller is also a banana. You don't even use a game, but you use
All
a
right.
banana. That's
Okay.
the level
All
of
right.
difficulty it is. Although the only good thing is just that as Nigerians, we are insanely resilient. Problem could happen now, and let's we'll just start laughing it off like I say it's no big deal. But yeah, the pain is real. And I'm also thankful for the fact that at least, unlike the elders before me that even had absolutely nothing to work with, at least we
Okay.
also have the connections to go around. But overall, it's still pretty difficult. Like, even to get on Steam was already a war that I fought for a whole 6 months. And
Yeah, I think I saw your post somewhere. Oh yeah, that you wanted to take part in was it the Next Fest or something like
yeah,
that? Yeah, the Next Fest, and it was a huge pain because of because of
yeah,
the just Steam not accepting payments and or your
yeah.
card and something. Yeah, I remember that.
Because
Yeah, painful.
Steam somehow doesn't want me to buy games there.
Yeah, it sounds really painful. Yeah, no, I feel for you. I mean, all countries have their kind of problems when it comes to new tech and these kinds of new careers. But I suppose it sounds like you have a lot of obstacles in your way if you want to develop a game, let alone your dream game, as you mentioned. So yeah, well, that's interesting. Well, then I think we're near the end, but that means we're approaching the question that I think has and I think it represents the core of what the Indie Diarist is about. And I want to ask you today, VCD, why are you a game developer? What is it that drives you forward?
Well, I like creating things. From stories to arts or games, anything. Heck, even for a while, I actually had a phase where I really wanted to invent stuff like a hot air balloon or a remote controlled car or something like that people can be using like a taxi. I've always wanted to create stuff. So then I kind of made a resolution that I would either do three things, be an inventor, although that one the country has already screwed that up, so that's out of the way, or I'll be an animator or artist, or I'll be a game developer. So I figured that me being a game developer now, I can actually even have the opportunity to do more of those other career choices, all in one single bundled package, which is games. So that's kind of led me here. I just like to create stuff, from worlds to stories, anything at all. Yes, that's
I totally relate to that. It's the one thing that drives me forward too, not just when it comes to making games, which I now do every now and then, just very small games, just as a hobby. But it's the beauty of creating something that other people will enjoy or that they will at least experience, and you have the chance to tell something and to leave a message and to say something meaningful. That I think a lot of creative people value that because it's something really special. The fact that you can connect with your audience in such a way, and talk to people and leave them with something. And I think I agree with you there that it's the art of creating something, creating worlds and stories and such. It's something priceless, at least to me and to people like us, I would say. Well, then I think that was a very heartfelt answer. I love that. Thank you. I think if we were to flip that now, I would like to ask you what drives you backwards. Like, what is your biggest struggle specifically as an indie developer?
Well, a part of me would have said discouragement. Like, I mean, I've already fought the war of people around me being like, making games is a waste of time, but at least now I think I've proven them wrong for the most part. Then the second part of me would have said anxiety, because, yeah, a ton of my effort so far has been fueled by anxiety. Like, what if it doesn't work? Then I'll just simply shake my head and say, "Quit," and just take the jump. I would have said the country, but we are like cockroaches at this point, super resilient to it. So I'll say one of the biggest drawbacks at this point is whenever I usually get to those moments where I feel like it's not really going anywhere. That feeling of inertia, just being in motion but not really going anywhere. So that's usually the one antagonist that I try to avoid as much as possible. So if there's anything that is trying to slow me down, I try to avoid as much as possible. Be it burnout or lack of funding or anything, just try to avoid it as much as possible.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's something that a lot of indie developers will unfortunately feel, especially solo devs. Already, if you're in a team, or maybe if you have the support of someone who's close to you and can and maybe develops the game with you and such, then it becomes different. I've spoken to a lot of people who maybe they're developing games with their partner or for their partner or for their family and whatnot, and that's always something that pushes them forward. But for many solo developers, the reality of things is that you feel alone against the world, basically. So I see what you mean. You feel like maybe sometimes things aren't going anywhere and such, but I think you do have a very strong concept there with the in-between, and I think has a lot of great potential, and it's starting to come together, I'm sure, now that you're past the midway point. So yeah, I'm confident that towards the end, it will be something even greater. But yeah, well, VCD, I mean, this episode just flew. I just have a couple more questions for you, and then you're free. One of them is going to be a little bit more fun, and one of them is going to be a little bit deeper. I'll start with a deep one. I want you to imagine writing a letter or leaving a note with your younger self. And when I say your younger self, I mean not the one that started developing the In-Between 2 years ago, but the one who started playing games at 5 and when you realized that you wanted to make games. What would that note say?
Okay, so I mean, first of all, I'll be like, hello, younger me, I'm you from the future. Terminator doesn't exist yet, so yeah. The next thing I'll say is, as you get older, yeah, definitely cherish the friends that you are making now. I mean, you make very few friends, so cherish them very well, and also find enough strength in connections. I mean, I get that it's very annoying to get out there and start meeting people at a party. I mean, loud music makes both of us nauseous at that point. But when you find any sort of connection, hang on tight. And when later on, you will eventually end up getting your own phone and get a social media account. Don't treat it like a place where you can just post and leave, but rather more of a place where you can actually meet people. People like people that are not like you, and learn from them, because you will definitely be learning a lot of things every day. So cherish those things as much as possible and make sure you listen from time to time. And as you get older as well, make sure that you stay resilient. Once you have that gut feeling that this is it and there's nothing much in your way, do it. Don't think twice, just do it.
That's a great note, a great letter. It would encourage me a lot, and I would cherish it for a long time if I received it from my older self. And I like something that you said there about resilience, yes, but also connection, but also the fact that you mentioned social media as a community. A lot of people just see it as a tool for marketing or something that they don't really want to have anything to do with, but actually it's a great place if the platform allows it and there's not a huge billionaire at the top. It's a great place that allows you to connect with other people and learn about those people and just create that sense of community with others. And I think that's really valuable and precious. So yeah, that's great advice. Right. So now for the fun question. If you had unlimited budget and time, so resources, unlimited, what game would you create?
Okay, so I have to do things based on the idealistic me, the naive me, and the logic me.
Okay.
So the part of me that is naive would be I'll make GTA 20.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going on RTX 5000 series GPU. They have gameplay elements from Crisis, Halo, GTA combined, even Undertale and everything else. Yeah, it will be the next Minecraft killer.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the naive part of me. Then the next would definitely be, that's the idealistic part of me. Well, pretty much what I'm already doing now.
Okay.
Because I would have definitely been making something that can end up expanding into a franchise, like stories that people can just be telling each other when they're walking to school or by the fireside. That kind of stuff. Since there's practically no risk at this point, I can just make whatever I want. If I see something that is potentially interesting, I'll be like, okay, let me just make it. Screw marketing, I need to stick to what people know. That's yeah, I can just take the risk. Then the logical part of me will kind of still to find that common ground that people can still be familiar with it and just go on with it. But yeah, I'm just going to end up sticking with the idealistic part for now, which is to just go up in there and just do things without any risk. Since there's no risk of loss, there's really nothing much stopping you from just making what you want or what you believe is fun.
Right. So. Yeah. No, that's great. I like that sentiment. And in between, pun intended, in between the logical, rational, and idealistic and naive self that you mentioned, there's something that a lot of indie developers tell me at this point, which is I would just be doing what I'm doing now, but bigger and better, because I would be able to, and this is exactly what I want to be doing as a game developer. This is the path that I carved for myself and that I am carving for myself. And I think I'm going to stick with it until the end. So that usually shows me that people that people who think that are very focused on what they would like to do, and they're really enjoying what they're doing right now, which isn't always the case. Then there are some people who just say, "Oh yeah, I would love to develop a massive MMORPG," which is still completely fine, and I still support very much. So that is another part, the flip side of this question. But usually it's one of those two. So yeah.
If I had unlimited resources, yeah, the APT wouldn't even be split into 3 chapters anymore. It had just been continued like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Okay. Well then, thank you so much, VCD, for a lovely episode. It was a lovely chat. It was also lovely meeting you for the first time after connecting on social so many times on Twitter first, now on Threads, especially after what happened recently with the block button, and not only that, but yeah, so best of luck with In Between. I can't wait for it to come out. I'm sure I will want to try it because I love Metroidvanias, I love Undertale, I love the concept of choices. I think there's a lot there that I'm going to enjoy. There's one last question that I have for you, which is it's time for some parting words. Where can other people find you, and if they do, what is the best way to support you?
Okay, so you can find me on Twitter at the In-Between Dev. Without that, I still use Twitter. Sad word. I'm mostly active on Threads. You can find me on Threads at VCD Gamer 12345. Then you could also contact me on Discord as VCD Gamer 123. Man, I use that name a lot, don't I? So if you want to support me, there are 2 major ways to do it. One naturally even has rewards tied along the way. So the first would simply be to help wishlist the game on Steam, drop a review, what you think on it, whether it's positive or negative, it helps. Feedback is the crucial point here.
Yeah.
So that's the first one, and the other one is to, well, if you can, you could support the game on Buy Me a Coffee. There's a campaign going on in there, and each campaign basically has rewards similar to Kickstarter. So basically, if you want to be an NPC in the game, you can. If you want access to exclusive wallpapers, you can. So it's all up to you.
Perfect.
It's your choice.
Great, beautiful. So I will put all of these links in the description of the episode, of course, so that people can find you and support you if they wish to. And what can I say if not? Thank you again, VCD, for a lovely episode, and I wish you the best of luck with the In Between.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's a wrap on episode 59. That's 59 episodes in less than 2 years since I founded the Indie Diarist. This wouldn't be possible without your incredible support, listeners. Thank you so much. And next episode is going to be the footnote with Pirate PR, and then there's the last episode of the year, which is going to be episode 60. So yeah, that means I published 30 episodes, 30 Indie Diarists this year. I wonder what 2025 has in store for me. But anyway, thank you guys for listening to the episode. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you, VCD, for being an amazing guest to have on the show. Your passion really shines through, and it's great that you're finding ways to still be the developer that you want to be and still develop your dream game with all the challenges that you basically listed and such. So yeah, it's very inspiring, and I hope it inspires other people to do the same. So yeah, well, listeners, if you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to the show, check out VCD, you'll find links in the description of the episode, and of course, go to theindiediarist.com to find all the links to support the show as well. Lastly, if you're an indie game developer yourself, please get in touch, because I'm always on the lookout for new stories to tell and new indie diaries to publish, and for new people to highlight from the indie game development community. So I'll speak to you next time.